Yeah. So day one kicks off pretty much in the dark in Hawaii for a 10K open water swim, and point to point. So it looks like quite a long way. And the swell was up, and the water is really warm. But because it's jellyfish season over there, you still have to wear a wetsuit. So that just adds an element to the already 28, 29 degree water. And then you're straight onto quite a hilly, windy, hot bike. So it's 145 Ks, but you finish with a 40-kilometer climb and finish at the top of the volcano.
Welcome along to the Lifting in Life podcast. First one for 2024. Excited to get this underway. I'm Cam, obviously. I'm the host. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I'm a personal trainer, and I also work in IT. Now, today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by the Ultraman World Champion. If I'm honest, I didn't really know what the Ultraman was. Obviously knew what Ironman was. Didn't know what Ultraman was. Then I discovered Simon Cochrane. Then learned a little bit more about Ultraman, and I was like, damn, I would love to chat to someone like this. So lucky enough to get him on. In terms of the Ultraman, I won't go into too much detail because obviously we covered that in the episode, but Ultraman, or this event anyway, was 515 kilometers in total, split over 3 days, and obviously split into swimming, biking, and then running. And the running event was a double marathon on the third day, 84 Ks. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but it was in Hawaii. There was jellyfish, there was heat, there was torrential rain. So yeah, you name it. He had it. And aspects to this podcast that I really wanted to explore, and that we did explore, was predominantly willpower and the ability to keep pushing through when stuff gets hard. I would put Simon in the same category as someone like David Goggins, honestly. Like, the stuff that he's done and what he's able to do is just, like, to me anyway, it's superhuman. And he's probably fitter than David Goggins too. Don't want to start shit, but I reckon he's fitter than him too. But other than that stuff, the willpower stuff, we also go over tangible kind of tools because Simon is also a coach. So we talk about how to improve cardiovascular fitness and also other aspects to endurance training and becoming a better endurance athlete, I guess you would word it. As always, I appreciate you tuning into the podcast. Any support you can show goes a long way. So whether that's a like, comment, subscribe, follow, whatever it is, it all helps a lot. And it helps me to continue getting these awesome people on. I've got some big goals for the podcast this year, which the main goal is frequency. If I can, I really want to be posting podcast episodes every week. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully I can. The main variable there is having people lined up in advance to do it, but I'm confident I can get it done. But yeah, any support you can show goes a long way. I hope you enjoy this episode, and remember, you make you. Were you on a laptop?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's
Nah, phone. Is that all good?
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right, Simon, here we are. You're joining from New Zealand in the car as well. Kudos to you for joining in the summertime while you're sitting in the car. I really appreciate you being here today, man.
Nah, thanks a lot. It's all good. And a bit of extra heat prep in the car is all good as well.
Yeah. So you don't have it on with the aircon on or anything right now?
Nah. I mean, it's 9 a.m, so it's only 20 degrees or so.
Oh, that's all right. Damn, it's like 6 degrees or something here in Manchester, but that's all right. Yeah. Well, honestly, man, it's genuinely an honor to get to sit down and chat with an athlete of your caliber. I don't know how I stumbled upon you, but I found you on Instagram somehow. And if I'm honest, I didn't even know Ultraman existed. I thought Ironman was a very impressive feat, and then I came across you being the Ultraman World Champion, and I just thought, damn, I got to sit down and chat with this guy. So it's genuinely an honor to be able to talk to you today, man.
Yeah, cheers. I mean, even a year ago, I didn't really know what Ultraman was either. So yeah.
You sit here as the world champion. How about that? No. So where I thought we could start, the probably logical point to start is getting a bit of an understanding into your background, getting into Ultraman. You just said you didn't even know about it a year ago. So could you sort of explain what your journey to getting into such a crazy sport was like and what that entailed?
Yeah, well, I guess like 10 or 12 years ago, I suppose, is when I started some triathlon and pretty much got straight into half Ironman and Ironman stuff. And that was considered pretty crazy back then, a pretty niche sort of sport. But I guess over the last 10 years, I mean, I've raced 37 Ironmans, and that's become, I guess, a bit more, I guess, with the group of people I've been hanging around with for the last 10 years, like it's pretty standard, you know, you do a few Ironmans a year.
I love that.
And
Standard.
then
Just do a couple of Ironmans. Yeah.
And then a couple of years back, I had a big bike accident and broke my shoulder, and I was out of the pool and off the bike and running for, a good 6 weeks. But I found that I could get back to running first, and that's when I got into a bit more of the ultra running stuff. So I did a couple of 100Ks and 100-mile and 24-hour run and that sort of stuff. And that just opened me up to a bit more of the more extreme events out there, I guess. And then, stumbled across Ultraman, and I thought with my Ironman triathlon background and a bit of ultra running recently, I thought that could suit me quite well.
Yeah. So it seems like there's a similar vein that's kind of threaded through there, that you've always sort of been pulled towards this longer form, more ultra kind of distance sport.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I played all the team sports in school and when I was younger and that sort of thing, but I think I was drawn towards, I guess you get the reward out of the work you put in for this ultra stuff. There's no relying on anyone, or there's no fallbacks. You can't blame anyone but yourself, really. Like if you put in the work and then execute on the day, it's all on you.
Yeah, no, that's an element of individual sport that I feel like a lot of people are drawn to, and it's almost like the onus is on you, and that can be both probably a positive thing and also sometimes probably a negative thing too, I guess.
Yeah, if it's going good, then you're riding the wave. But same thing when people are having a bad day or a bad race, or they're injured and struggling with training, then it's pretty tough as well, because you can't rely on your teammates to get you through.
Yeah, no one else to blame either.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of this event last year in Hawaii, I'm pretty keen to go into some detail of this, because I listened to a podcast that you were on, and you were like talking about the jellyfish and the rain and the double marathon on the third day, and I was just so intrigued. So could you take us to that time last year in Hawaii, maybe starting off on what that day one looked like? Because the day one was the swim, the 10K swim, and then a bike ride, right?
Yeah. So day one kicks off pretty much in the dark in Hawaii for a 10K open water swim, and point to point. So it looks like quite a long way. And the swell was up, and the water is really warm. But because it's jellyfish season over there, you still have to wear a wetsuit. So that just adds an element to the already, 28, 29 degree water. And then when you're in there for 2, 3, some people 4 hours of swimming, that makes it a lot more of a challenge. So the swim for me was, particularly hard, because when you're trying to swim fast, your body's already quite warm, but then you've got the element of the extra warm water and the seawater chop and everything like that. So it still went well. I mean, I let out of the water by a good sort of 5-6 minutes. Swam around that 2.5 hours. And then you're straight onto quite a hilly, windy, hot bike. So it's 145 Ks, but you finish with a 40-kilometer climb and finish at the top of a volcano. And we had a predominant headwind for that whole day. Yeah. So it was pretty honest, solid day one, giving you some good Hawaii conditions.
That's hectic, man. Honestly, that's like, I can't even fathom even attempting something like that, to be honest. But in terms of that swim, what does the element of sort of risk management look like? Obviously, there's the there's the jellyfish, which is a very evident risk, and you kind of mitigate that with a wetsuit. But are there other big things that you have to consider in terms of like you say, the chop, like the swell or the currents or the winds or anything? Like, what kind of risk management goes into that swim strategy?
Yeah, so you do have a support paddler in a kayak who can carry your drink bottle and that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and they will, I guess, guide you in the most direct route, which is helpful. So I had a local guy who was one of the paddlers over there, the sort of the canoe paddlers, and on one of the outrigger canoes. So it was quite cool to see him. And yeah, so he helped me with the direction, and that keeps you away from the reefs and the breaking waves, because there's some sort of like 6 to 8 foot waves breaking on the coast.
That's
And we're
huge.
only sort of 100 meters out the back of that, so you wouldn't want to get caught on the inside.
No.
So I guess the risk management there is just taking the best line and then trying to stay hydrated and fueled. But other than that, it's just swimming as hard as you can for 10K.
And to hydrate and fuel, do you have to stop swimming? Like, how did the logistics of that work?
Yeah, so we had a bit of a practice swim the day before, and I sort of said how my other previous races had worked. And yeah, I'd sort of every couple of K, when I knew I wanted something to drink, I'd just yell out like drink, and that would sort of mean in the next 30 seconds he would paddle up, get a bottle ready. I'd swim next to him, just have a quick scull, chuck it back to him, and then we're away. So yeah, not stopping and mucking around, but yeah, it's definitely worth stopping to get some fluids in.
Yeah. And did you see, other than the jellyfish, did you see any other sort of threatening species while you were swimming? Like, did you see any sharks or anything that could have posed some kind of risk?
No sharks. Quite a few of the people got to see some dolphins.
Oh, nice.
I saw a couple of big manta rays,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because yeah, for 90% of the swim, you can see below, and a lot of fish life, and yeah, a few stingrays, manta rays, that sort of thing. So,
Man.
but nothing that was too scary.
Yeah. I suppose that you're probably super focused on the swim anyway. It's not like you're out there for a leisurely snorkel around the reef or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And heading into that day one of the bike, how did you feel when you finished that 10K swim? I honestly can't even fathom swimming 10K, so I can't even imagine what that's like. But when you finish the 10K swim and you jump on the bike, how did that transition feel?
Yeah, well, the last 3Ks of the swim, I was pretty cooked. Like, I was overheated and had to even stop a couple of times, like dry reaching, because you're swallowing salt water the whole way. And yeah, I had quite a bad headache just from being so hot and probably dehydrated and that sort of thing. So you're just really looking forward to getting out of your wetsuit, really, chucking some cold water over your head. And then once you're out onto the bike, you can, get your fluids in as often as you like. You're not sort of worrying about the conditions as such. But yeah, it was a lot hillier and a lot windier than I was actually expecting. So yeah, after the first hour or so, when you're only averaging like 20 kilometers an hour, you're thinking, shit, this is going to be a long day.
Yeah.
But then once you get into it, and yeah, you've got a few downhills and flatter, faster sections, and getting some time splits to the guys behind that, yeah, putting some good time into them just helps with that motivation. And then, yeah, the last climb, sort of like an hour and a half uphill, finished at the top of this volcano, had some pretty cool views, but it's just literally grinding for that last 90 minutes. But then that's the finish, so you can push through pretty hard.
Yeah. And what is it's so interesting coming out of a swim feeling that fatigued and then having to jump on a bike for over 100K. What is your sort of internal dialogue? What do you tell yourself, or how do you talk yourself through it? Is there anything, or are you kind of just like autopilot, like on to the next job to get it done?
Yeah, race day, you're definitely in the zone, in the autopilot. But I mean, heading into the race, you're expecting it to be a shitty few days. Like, yeah, you're not there to have fun. You're not there to muck around. So you're literally on the limit for the 3 days. And that's what you prepare yourself for in the training. Like, yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hot and windy. But yeah, you just almost enjoy that because everyone's in the same elements. And I was confident that I'd prepared as good, if not better, than anyone else on the start line.
No, that's fair. You kind of got the data to support your confidence there. So I suppose that would help pull you through a little bit. And then waking up on that second day, is that the second day is just a bike ride, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a little 280k bike ride.
Oh, just down the road, mate. That's all right.
Yeah.
280 k's. So then, what time are you getting up on that second day? It must be super early to be able to get 280 k's in.
Yeah, pretty early, and we had to start back at the top of the volcano. So we actually had to drive down into the town and spend the night there in just an Airbnb. So yeah, up quite early, drive back to the top of the volcano, where it's predominantly raining every morning. So we started, I think it might have been just on light. We did have to have some headlights and that sort of thing. But yeah, you're straight into a 40-kilometer downhill descent into driving rain to start the day.
I was going to say the descent was probably a nice thing, but probably into driving rain probably wasn't nice.
Yeah, no, you couldn't. You're just squinting your eyes, and I lost a bottle on the descent. Just fell out and rolled away, and a couple of people actually crashed on that first descent as well. So it was a bit slippery and pretty treacherous way to start the day.
Yeah, would that be quite comparable to your training in NZ? Like, would you have a lot of that heavy driving kind of rain? I suppose you would, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have a pretty wet winter, or an even summer last year in New Zealand here. So I was used to riding in the rain, but when you've got, I guess, when you're going at race intensity, and it's still open roads for the Ultraman course, so you've got cars and local traffic and that sort of thing that you've got to be wary about, because they don't know that you're coming down the hill at 75 k's an hour. So I guess, yeah, that just adds another element to it. And it's not cold either, so you've still got the humidity, and it was 25 degrees or whatever, so it's nicer than New Zealand winter riding.
Rather than 5 degrees and driving rain, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So
no ice on the road.
Thankfully, still slippery though by the sounds of it. And that strategy for the second day, what does it look like to fuel yourself for a 200k ride in temperatures like that? Because obviously dehydration must be one of the main concerns there. So what does a fueling strategy look like for a big ride like that?
Yeah, so I mean, you're obviously still in a bit of calorie deficit from the day before, 7.5 hours of threshold effort. So then you obviously want to fuel yourself for that day, but you also, in the back of your mind, you're like, all right, I got to run 2 marathons in this heat the following day as well. So it is all about managing, trying to get in as many calories, carbs, and also liquid as you can, because it's very hot. So you've got support crew, which is my family, my wife and my parents and another mate, who are driving up the road and handing out ice cold water bottles and nutrition as I need it, which is quite handy. So I pretty much use 100% liquid nutrition throughout the 3 days, which is just a mixture of tailwind nutrition, mix that up quite strong, and then you're obviously topping it up with quite a lot of extra water, not only to drink but also pour over your head and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and
just sticking to what I've done in training. So it's usually around that 100 to 120 grams of carbs per hour. So you're getting quite a lot in, but I know that I can tolerate that. Not only on race day, but backing it up 3 days as well. It's quite a lot of stress on the stomach.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting, like having that amount of liquid on the stomach too. It's obviously, you must have practiced with that and know that it sits well in your stomach.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a handful of 9-hour rides and that sort of thing beforehand. So that you got to get that in. But as I say, just as important, so that you're fueled up for the following day, because that day 3 is where shit gets real.
Yeah, man. That day 3. So I got into running. So, athlete to athlete, I've run 10K race before. So no, I'm joking.
Yep.
And so, well, even getting into running a little bit over the past sort of 6 or 8 months, I kind of have a bit of an understanding about pace and like what a fast marathon is, and how like a lot of people aim for a sub 3 hour marathon. And I was listening to that podcast, one of the podcasts you were on, and you had to do the double marathon in under 6 hours, 15 minutes, right?
Yeah. Under 6:12 to break 21 hours in Hawaii, which no one had done before.
Yeah, to get the course record. And what did you end up getting on the run?
I think I went 6:09 in the end.
That's just like honestly unfathomable to me, man, to think that a lot of people train to get a sub 3 hour marathon, and then in Hawaii you go out there and run a double marathon after doing the swim and the bike, and doing it in basically like 2-3 hour marathons. It's insane, man.
Yeah, the first marathon was around that 2:58, 2:59, and the goal was to try and break that 6 hours, but the heat and conditions just didn't quite allow me to do that. I felt like I'd blown up quite a lot, but my support crew were like, "No, you're still running all right. You're still running all right." But yeah, once you've gone from running sort of 4:10s to 4:30s or 4:40s for the last few Ks, that feels like you've really pulled the handbrake on.
Yeah, and that's like a lot of people's goal is to run Ks under 5 minutes, so to be putting in those kind of Ks at the end of a race like that, man, that's super quick, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, and managed a sub 4 minute K for the last one just to make sure we got under that record.
Just to seal the deal. So for a run like that, obviously you must have again had a super early start on that third day, right, to get in a double marathon?
Yeah, they actually started us a little bit earlier, which was quite nice. So the first hour, or first 45 minutes or so was in the dark, so you don't have the sun beating down on you. And then once that sun comes up, it gets pretty warm. And then same thing, we had quite a strong headwind for the last 30 odd K. And the first 20 Ks is net downhill, and then you're sort of rolling and you've got a few longer climbs in that back half.
Yeah. What kind of elevation do you get up to?
What was the elevation gain? Might have been it was probably only 500 or 600 meters total.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're doing that back end of the double marathon, it feels a bit pinchier than that.
Oh, yeah. No, that's still decent. And I was just thinking, we did the Abel Tasman Great Walk, and I think the elevation on that gets up to like 200 meters or something. So like, as a reference point, man, that's still a decent climb to be putting in that kind of time for a double marathon as well, to battle the heat and also the climb. It might not sound like a lot to you and your experience, but man, it's not exactly a flat course that you would get some kind of PB on.
No, it's just rolling, and it's point to point as well. So that's quite daunting when you start, 84.5 Ks away, and it's just straight down a black hot highway with traffic and all sorts, and you got the heat coming from the lava fields on the side, and no clouds in the sky. So it was
that's
good, honest conditions.
And for context, because I'm from Whakatane, that would be like Whakatane to Tauranga or something, right? That must be about 80 something Ks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I live in Hamilton, so it's pretty much Hamilton to Rotorua, like, that stretch.
And that's like over an hour drive.
Yeah.
Man, that's hectic. At what point in the race did you see that, obviously, or you felt that you were going to win, you had enough of a lead that you knew you were going to win, and then at what point did you know that you were going to be able to crack the race record? Because it was, I got it written down, it was 44 minutes, right? You beat the course record by.
Yeah, so the record was 21:41, I think, before I went. So obviously the number one goal was to go over there and win. To break the record was a bonus, and then to get under 21 hours, which no one had done, would be the cherry on the top, I guess. So going into the start of day 3, I was confident that if I ran even, just a steady run, I would still break the record, because I would have been able to run, around 6:45. And my previous 2 Ultraman runs had been like 6:12 and 6:06.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought if I run well, then that record, the sub 21 is still within reach. And it turned out it was, just by, a few minutes.
And what does it feel like when you actually complete an event like that? Because I've got nothing that I could even compare to that kind of immense amount of effort, and then also winning it and also breaking the record. So are you able to put into words how it feels to complete such an ordeal?
Yeah, it almost is a relief, but then I guess I'm more proud of the whole build up and the whole year, and just executing it on the day. Like, there's quite a bit of pressure just on myself. So I guess, yeah, once you've finished, it is just a bit of relief. Obviously, you've been in a world of pain for the previous few hours at least, so you are looking forward to the finish line there. And then also, yeah, just the celebrations of getting it done, really.
Yeah, man. It's interesting that you bring up the amount of effort that is applied prior to the event. Although the event itself is like the cherry on top, kind of like you say, it's actually the bulk of effort that you put in, and that's it's a area of your space that I'm super interested in. Especially, I heard that in the build up to this event, you didn't take any days off training.
Yeah, no time for that. Yeah, well, the 3 days of the race actually go by pretty quick
Mm-hmm.
because you're just focused, you're in it, and then all of a sudden you're like, shit, it's done. But yeah, the months of the prep, that's where the race winning performance comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It's just those day in day out getting it done. Really, like I think I had 5 25 to 30 hour weeks training in the lead up. Along with, I mean, that last year had an Ironman, had 2 other Ultramans, had a 100-mile race, and a 24-hour run race in there as well. So you're sort of using everything in the prep for the big end of year goal, which was that Ultraman in Hawaii.
Man, this area, I don't know. Do you know who Andrew Huberman is? He has quite a well-known podcast here. So I was listening to one of his podcasts recently, and I was actually listening to it because it's so applicable to you and what you do. And that's his one on willpower and tenacity. And he's talking about the area of the brain, the AMCC. So I wanted to get an understanding from you, what those terms willpower and tenacity mean to you, because I just no doubt there are days when your alarm goes off at like 5 a.m. or whatever, and the last thing you want to
That's a sleeping, right? That's a sleeping.
Right, 4 a.m., whatever it is. And you just can't be bothered getting up and going for your run or your swim or your bike. What do those elements of willpower and tenacity mean to you, and what do they look like in action for you in your training?
Yeah, I mean, every day when the alarm goes off, you do not feel like getting out of bed. It's the same for everyone. But if you make it a non-negotiable, like if you hit snooze once, then that's a bad habit that's ingrained. So it's like I've never hit snooze. I put my phone across the other side of the room. So when the alarm goes off, you have to get out of bed to turn it off.
Yeah.
And you got to turn it off quick because you don't want to wake the wife or the kids up as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the way I look at it is you're committed to the end goal. And if you miss one session, you're almost devaluing all the hard work you put in up to that point. So it's like if I say, I'm just going to skip my run today or my ride for no good reason, like, if you're injured or sick or something, then that's fair enough. But if there's no real solid reason why you should miss a session, then you're devaluing that whole preparation that you've done, even for the last year. It's like you're taking a bit away from everything, and then you're just ingraining some bad habits into pulling out of sessions. So I think just having the willpower, I guess, to get every session done, that just gives you the confidence, and that just builds on each training block, each race, to know that you've done all you can.
Mm. It's quite refreshing to hear you say that you don't want to get up. I thought you were going to be some superhuman, and you're like, no, mate, I never struggle to get up in the morning.
Well, it is just normal.
Yeah.
So you do just, normalize it and do it. But you definitely would love a sleep in every now and again.
Yeah. And it's interesting how you say over time it kind of builds throughout the training blocks, and the research in this area of the brain, the AMCC, it's like the anterior mid-cingulate cortex or something. It's a fancy name.
Yep.
But anyway, this area is super plastic in the brain, so it can grow, and it grows when you do things you don't want to do. So it sounds like you're almost like an anecdotal kind of evidence there, where you're saying like over time the ability to be able to do it, not that I guess it ever becomes super easy or like a reflexive behavior, you're just up and it's no worries, but it sounds like the ability to do it, you maybe experience less friction with it over time.
Yeah, I think you just make that your new normal.
Mm.
So it's like, getting up at when my alarm goes off at 4:40, it's like that's normal. That's a normal day. If I didn't do that, it would feel off. Um,
Mm.
so I guess yeah, and same thing with the training. Like, if you've been loading up some 20-hour, 30-hour weeks and you're doing that consistently enough, that's your new normal. So yeah, don't don't step away from that.
Yeah. And 25 to 30 hours of training a week, man, that's a lot of training volume. How is that structured? Because obviously it wouldn't be like 4 hours a day or something. I assume you must have a couple of hours during the week and then maybe a big day in the weekend. Is that right? Or
Yeah, I mean, I work from home. I'm full-time coaching now, so the flexibility there helps a lot. But I'm coaching myself as well, so that helps where I can plan things out around family and work and yeah, different, if we had functions on or something like that, then I can slot training in here and there. And then it also gives me the flexibility that if a mate rings me up and says, right, we're going for a run in a couple of days, then I can shuffle things around and make it fit. Whereas if I had a 9 to 5 office job, that makes it a bit trickier, especially to get the bigger 30-hour weeks. Like I coach a lot of age group athletes that will get in the 15 to 20 hours, and that's hard work and that's a lot of commitment. But they can slot in, a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the evening, and then a bigger session on the weekend. But if you're trying to get up towards that 30 hours, then then you're compromising on sleep, family time, recovery, and that sort of thing.
mm-hmm. And to get through those big weeks, what kind of stuff do you tell yourself, or what does your strategy look like? It sounds like you were kind of touching on it before, but is it just kind of consistently looking towards that end goal, that sort of meaningful goal that you're already gunning for, or is there more to it?
Yeah, I mean, I look at the next big event that I've got on and sort of work backwards and work out what key sessions I need to do. And then with the Ultraman stuff, you are filling the rest of the spaces with some aerobic volume. Whereas if you're training for Ironman or half Ironman, you are doing a lot more specific power and pace intervals. Whereas Ultraman, yeah, you are trying to just get a lot more load into your body over a longer period of time because you need to tolerate, 7-8 hours of threshold 3 days in a row. So I guess that's different for the Ultraman than it is for different sports.
Mm-hmm. Another element of this AMCC and willpower that we're kind of touching on is also avoiding things that you want to do. So getting up in the morning, obviously you're pushing yourself to do something that you don't want to do. But are there things that you have to actively avoid doing that you want to, like that might look like, I don't know, drinking some beers or eating some food or doing some things that you really want to do, but you actively have to resist doing it?
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm sure a lot of people from the outside would look in thinking, oh, you're depriving yourself of, certain things like you say, drinking or going out and that sort of thing. But I guess if you're looking at what you need to focus on to get that end result, you're still coming back to those choices each day. Like, is this decision going to help me in the long run, or is it going to make me take a couple of steps back? So I think it's just if you're focused enough on that end result and you can ask yourself an honest question and answer it, then you got to be happy with your decision. There's definitely time for some beers and heading out and eating some rubbish food. But I'd say 99% of the time, especially if you've got like a big world champs coming up, then that makes it easier to make those decisions.
Yeah, and what about the idea of training without purpose? Because the idea of training for an event, it's so tangible. And say, like an example from my life, my partner, she's a professional bikini bodybuilder. So she's competed in a bunch of shows. So the idea of like going out and drinking while you're on a bodybuilding prep, it's just, it doesn't even cross your mind, you just don't do it.
Yep.
And it sounds like it's similar
Yep.
similar to you. But what about if you didn't have a training goal in mind? Maybe I'm thinking of more sort of everyday kind of people who aren't Ultramen. That's most of us. But what about in that instance? What kind of tools do you think people could use there? I don't know if maybe that's applicable to some of your athletes. Maybe they might be going through that, like What kind of advice do you give to people in that instance?
Yeah, well, I think like always pushing yourself in training, like even if you didn't have a race, does cross over to other areas of life, like, your personal relationships and especially work. Um, yeah, choosing the hard option with all your things. Like if you can get up early, get those hard training sessions done, then if you've got a project or a challenge at work, then you're more likely to step up and yeah, I guess attack that in the same way you would with the same commitment and um, willpower, like we're talking about.
Hmm.
If it's a phone call that you need to make, then you'll just be like, fuck it, pick up the phone. Don't put things off, I guess. Like your training, like if your alarm goes off, you get it done. If some work schedule thing comes up and it's important, you just get it done straight away. So I think it crosses over to all of that. So you're not only getting a benefit from a physical point of view from training, but I think the mindset and yeah, other ways it can cross over are hugely beneficial.
Yeah, and that like perfectly aligns with the research on that area of the brain too, because if you can grow that part of your brain through your training and you increase your willpower and your ability to do difficult things, exactly like you say, it crosses over into everyday parts of your life, and you can feel it. That that example of a phone call, that's so tangible. I feel like everyone has felt like, oh shit, I need to call this person. I'll do it tomorrow,
Yep,
instead
yep.
of just facing it and just ticking it off. And I like that advice of doing things early in the morning too, because do you find that if you get it done the start of the day, it kind of sets you up for a better day and that kind of snowballs throughout the day, that momentum?
Well, it definitely cuts down the chance of not getting it done later on because it's already done. Like it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Like if you've got one session to do and you get up and you get it done, then the rest of the day can go however it wants to go,
Hmm.
but you've still locked that away. And it's also going to set you up better for a work day as well, as if you've, got the blood flow, got some exercise done, you'll feel a lot more confident and a lot pleased rather than dreading the session that you've got to do later on. Um, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think going back to that last thing we're talking about, how it crosses over to the work life, I guess, success and that sort of thing is like just meeting a lot of the Ultraman competitors over the last year, and hearing some of their stories about their successful businesses. And there's been a couple of guys that have climbed Everest and climbed all 7 summits. So it's like these people that are committed to a certain goal have definitely put that into other aspects of their life with, some real successful businessmen and other aspects of life. So it's quite exciting to just see that in the real life, I guess.
Yeah, man, it would be so interesting to scan all of your brains to see how they differ from more kind of normal, everyday kind of people, right? Like the different areas of your brain that must be, like that AMCC, that must be huge in comparison to people who don't do Ultraman events. And it seems like it's evident that they're able to apply that kind of, I don't know, mental strength to those other areas of their life, like business or other physical feats, like climbing Everest. That's hectic, man. And climbing all 7 peaks. It's obvious that they have the ability to take on massive challenges and complete them.
Yeah, and I think it shows that, people think, oh, you're doing Ultraman, you're training 30 hours a week, you mustn't have time for any other aspect of life. But I think if you can be so efficient in your training and work out better strategies of fitting all of that in, then same thing, that crosses over to everything else.
Yeah. And it's probably like that idea of if you want something done, you give it to the busiest person, right?
Give it to the busiest person you know. Yep,
Yeah,
yep, yeah, I
exactly,
like that.
man. Yeah. Now, but moving on a little bit, maybe to something more physically tangible, I'd be super interested to hear your advice around different training strategies for obviously cardio. That's a huge one, and maybe the different types of weight and mobility training that you do as well. But if we started with the cardio, and maybe if we make it more tangible for um, everyday kind of people, maybe athletes that you train even, what are some of
Yep.
the key fundamentals of building a good cardiovascular system?
Yeah, well, I mean, to start with, it all comes back to consistency. So if you can train consistently, no matter what pace you're running or what sessions you're doing across a whole year, you're going to be way better off than someone who has an awesome month, gets injured, sick, steps back, does that sort of thing. So I think number one is just making sure that the training load that each individual athlete can handle is right for them. There'll be certain points where you're trying to push that limit a little bit and you might, overstep the mark a touch. But I guess being in touch with the athletes enough to then be able to pull it back before it gets too bad as well. So consistency would be number one. And then working out the specifics of what event you're training for, whether it's a marathon, whether it's a 10K or an Ironman. And you're probably starting at the opposite end of the spectrum. Like say for a marathon early on, I'd be liking to get them doing a lot of high intensity speed work and a bit more strength to get strong in those early days. And then closer you get to the event, then you're doing a lot more specific work. So then closer to the time, your body's getting used to marathon pace, fueling at that, some longer runs. So then when you hit race day, you feel like you feel like it's just another training day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the consistency and then the specifics. And then the third thing I'd say is just being confident, like giving the athletes sessions where they're finishing faster or finishing a bit quicker than their actual race pace is going to be. So then when they get to the day, they're confident that they can hit those paces. And I guess where I'm a bit different as well is if I'm training someone for a marathon, even for their first one, I'll have them run a marathon in training. So it's like, if they know they can run a marathon, that's one box ticked. And the amount of confidence they get from that, even if there's some walk breaks in there or it's broken up, but if they've got 42.2 Ks on their watch, like the confidence and I guess happiness from them ticking that goal before they've even got to the start line, that's a win. So that's where I'll be a little bit different. Like some coaches, will cap it at 30 Ks or 32 Ks, whereas most of my athletes, I will get them to run a marathon before they do a marathon. And like I say, if you want to get good at running marathons, then run more marathons.
Yeah, simple, right? No, that formula makes sense. It might not be, I don't know, the optimal physical approach or whatever you could argue against it, but to have the confidence in the data to say, it's even like you with your events in Hawaii. You're like, I know I've done the work. It must be like that, I know I can do a marathon because I have done a marathon, not crossing your fingers saying, oh, I've done 32 Ks. I assume I can do 42 Ks.
Yeah. And that confidence is worth more than a lot of people realize.
Yeah. And what about specifics? So one area I've been sort of looking into more now that I've gotten into running is like the different cardio zones that you can train in. Where do you, I don't know if it's really camps or whatever, but where do you stand when it comes to building your cardio fitness and what zones you should be training in most of the time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends how experienced a certain athlete is. Like, so for me, who have got years and years of base miles there, like I can handle a bit more weekly volume than probably most people can do. But now I've realized I don't need to do a lot of speed work or over race pace work just because I've got the strength there, the endurance. And I think on the day, the mindset, I can push hard and the body will usually respond pretty well. So I just got to make sure that I get to race day feeling well, like I've done the taper right. And then if I'm fueling well on the day, I'm confident that I can, call on the years and years of work that's in the body to get me through. Like say at Taupo Half Ironman a few weeks back, haven't really done any fast running for the entire year. And then still managed to run a 1:15 half marathon off the bike. So that surprised me even, where you just, give it some gas and the body's like, okay, I remember this.
Let's go. Yeah.
But for the newer athletes, then they're needing to teach their body to fire, to get stronger at some, shorter efforts. But then also the bulk of the training still needs to be that easy aerobic training that most people will train in that grey area in the middle where it feels like you're working hard, but you're not actually working hard enough, but you're still working too hard to gain any more benefit than if you're just doing your long, easy aerobic stuff. So I think you need to be doing a lot more easier stuff, but then a lot more harder stuff when you actually got the efforts.
Yeah, it's like that. Most people sit in that high aerobic. I don't know if it's zone 3, but it's kind of like that.
Yeah, which feels good. Still not even quite tempo effort.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
but you're not getting any extra benefit than if you were just running 30 seconds a k slower.
but you got to look good on Strava though, right? So you don't.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Do you have any kind of formula for calculating that zone 2 kind of space? Because I've heard, a few different ones where it's like 180 minus your age, or like you should be able to speak in long sentences, or how do you coach people or to know when they're in
Yeah, I
that
guess
zone?
it's dialing people into more of a feeling, because if you're running trails or hills or that sort of thing, heart rate takes a while to catch up. So heart rate I just use as a guide, and people that like to use heart rate, then that's all good. I haven't worn a heart rate monitor for 15 years.
And you're doing all
So
right.
I'm
So
just Yeah, and I'm just dialing into that feeling. So I guess we do quite a few like 5K, 10K time trials, and that gives us a really good idea of some threshold paces and some, effort for 1K intervals or tempo running and that sort of thing. So I guess just regular time trials to check in where you're at, but then also those shorter, harder efforts like a 5K park run or whatever are a really good session as well to work on that top end speed, and the mental strength of turning up and giving it full gas.
yeah, that's interesting. A sport that I could liken that to is maybe powerlifting. If you can deadlift 200 kgs, well, 100 kgs is 50% of your maximum effort.
Yep,
So is
yep.
it kind of like that?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So you're working out some percentages of your 5K time,
Mm.
and then trying to work in between that for your longer efforts. But the best thing to do is a race. Like if you're aiming to beat your marathon, then you go off your last marathon time, and then you're trying to bring those times down for some shorter intervals, obviously.
Yeah,
Um,
because the
yep,
environment of the competition is so much different to when you're just out there by yourself slogging away.
yep, for sure. And that's where some group sessions, or just like I say, your local park run just provides that little bit more motivation to give it full gas.
Mm.
And that's a good honest test of where you're at.
You're the second person today who's recommended park runs, so there must be something to it. I might have to give it a go.
Yeah, well, a good free timed run, local event,
Yeah,
which is on every Saturday morning around the world.
exactly.
Yeah, what's you can't really find any negatives with
Yeah.
that.
No, the
And quite often I'll give my athletes like a 10K run, 2 park run, give it a 5K full gas, and a 10K run
mm,
home, and then you've got your effort in the middle of a long run.
yeah, that's a good strategy. A lot of the parks are at least a few Ks away from me, so I was thinking about doing that. So that's interesting that you prescribe that to your athletes.
Yep. Get a good warm up done on the way down, and then teach yourself to run on some tired legs on the way home.
Yeah. Another component of your training, obviously, it must be super cardiovascular based given the amount of distance you do for your events. But I assume you must have some like weight training and some kind of mobility training in there as well. So, other than your cardio stuff, what other training modalities do you include?
Yeah, I mean, early on, I used to work as a personal trainer in the gym like 15 years back. So I had a big strength background.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually carried over quite well, because same thing, I'm only needing to sprinkle in a little bit of specific strength work here and there. Last year, with the bigger training volumes, I wasn't putting in nearly as much strength work, just because, it affects the rest of your training so much. But the mobility stuff, like after every run, I'll do 5 to 10 minutes of stretching anyway. So that adds up over the week.
Mhm.
So I think for most of the endurance athletes that struggle to fit it in, it is just doing 5 minutes here and there to get the benefits. Like sometimes at the end of some runs for my athletes, I'll prescribe some walking lunges and calf raises, and that just gets enough activation in there. And then there's some off-season time where if people have some specific weaknesses, then we can really work on, some movements that are going to help, if it's glutes or quads or that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But in general, you can run more hills, ride more hills, some bigger gear strength work. like if the number one goal is to perform at a certain race, then if we can get some specific strength work in rather than gym work, then that will always trump the weights side of thing for me. Unless you had a few months where you didn't have any events, then we can really load up some strength work there. But if you had an event coming up and you want to get stronger, and if you want to get stronger at biking, then you need to do more biking. And if you can do some lower cadence work or some hill reps or some higher intervals, then that's going to cross over to your cycling performance a lot more.
Yeah, no, that kind of makes sense. It's like you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it at like a higher intensity or with more resistance or something. So effectively you're building strength in that movement.
Yep, for sure. And if someone didn't have an event coming up, then that's when you can, slot in a bit of different stuff to just provide some different stimulus as well. And then when you go back to your biking, then hopefully that's provided a bit more strength there as well.
Chuck some bicep curls in there or something for your biking.
Yeah, always time for that.
Need some for the photos, right? For your Instagram photos,
Yeah.
You need to have some big biceps there. And what about, because in terms of the mobility aspect, you're saying how you do like a bit of stretching after running. Do you just already have good mobility for something like swimming? Because I imagine swimming is a lot in terms of especially shoulder mobility to be able to get the most out of your stroke. So what does that look like there?
Yeah, my shoulder mobility is shit out.
I thought you were going to say it was really good.
Nah, it's just nah. I mean, I didn't swim as a kid. I didn't start swimming until I was 24.
Yeah.
So yeah, my streamline position in the pool is pretty crap. But that's where I think my open water swimming is a lot better than my pool swimming, because you're not having to do as much technical tumble turns or streamline and butterfly kicks and that sort of thing. You literally can just get in and you just get in and thrash your arms around and kick as hard as you can, and you'll generally move faster.
That's probably where the bicep curls actually help you.
Yeah, when you're trying to do some quick 100s or 200s, and the people who can actually swim will gain 10 meters off the wall before you've even taken a stroke, then so trying to keep some mobility through the shoulders and flexibility definitely helps. So it's just trying to hold on to what you've got. Do a lot of hanging from the bar and opening your chest up and that, because when you're doing a lot of 9-hour bike rides in that aero position, then that is opposite to what your shoulders are actually wanting.
That's probably what the physios tell you not to do, right? How you sit at your desk, but your problem is that you sit at a bike for that long.
Yeah, exactly.
The last aspect of your sport or your lifestyle that I'd like to kind of explore a little bit more is how it impacts. You can still hear me? I can't hear you though.
That all right now?
Yep, I got your back. Did the AirPods go flat?
AirPods are dead. Yeah.
Oh mate, we've been talking for too long.
Yeah, stop speaking. Right. So that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's the last question. People are doing well. I think they're committed to the whole podcast if they're still here with us now. So we're right. This last aspect, obviously, like you say, when you're coming towards an event, you're training for anywhere between 20 and 30 hours a week. How does it influence or impact the relationships in your life in either a positive way or a negative way?
Yeah, like I say, I think it's just been pretty normal for the family for the last wee while. I mean, we've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. They're involved a lot with supporting at events and see us both training. Like my wife, she's done 11 Ironmans as well, so I think that helps having someone who understands the training, but also I guess understands what it takes if you do have a goal to win the world champs. She sees that I do need to do those sorts of sessions week in, week out, but I think the benefit of working from home and being more flexible is I still am home for breakfast time with the kids and getting them off to school and daycare, and then same thing with dinner time and bedtime, so I can slot things in during the day, which definitely helps a lot. I think that would provide a lot more stress for everyone if I wasn't there for breakfast time or dinner time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And in terms of a positive way, this is just my perspective, but I feel like it must have a super positive impact on your kids, like seeing their dad trying so hard at something and achieving something so big, especially in a sport. Is that kind of a feeling that you have too, that you're a positive role model to them?
Yeah, definitely. I'd hope so. But same thing. It's been normal for them from day one. So like, Dad will go out and do a 100K training run on a Saturday, and then he's still got to come home and do the lawns, and it's just another run. So I guess they
Yeah,
see it as normal. They might realize when they start to see other parents at school or whatever don't quite do anything as
yeah,
crazy. But yeah, and I think even like it crosses over to um, my wife and my parents. Like, they're all out there chasing marathons and Ironmans and that sort of thing as well. So I think your circle of influence, yeah, I guess hopefully get some encouragement and start to
mm,
normalize some crazier stuff. Like, my wife is doing a 50K ultra in a few weeks, and I've got her doing, a couple of marathons and training and that sort of thing. And I guess she just sees that, right, I've been doing that, every weekend for the
yeah.
last year, then seems to work. So she just gets on and gets it done as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're so far above the baseline that you're just naturally increasing their baseline or adjusting their sort of concept of what's normal.
Yeah, I think, like, yeah, if I go out and do an 8 hour run on a weekend, and they're like, oh shit, I can do 4 hours, So
4 hour runs nothing.
yeah, and that's the same with my athletes as well. Like, a lot of them will gain, I guess, confidence in knowing that I know how to prepare myself and them for any certain events. But then if I'm giving them, like, I had about 5 or 6 of my athletes do a New Year's Day marathon, and I had that on my plan as well. And I woke up and I was like, oh, I do not feel like doing this. But it gives me the motivation as well to be like, shit, I can't be the one who's not doing it.
Yeah, man.
If I've scheduled it to them as well. So it works both ways.
Yeah, that's like if you think about starting your Monday well and it sets you up for a good week. I feel like doing a New Year's Day marathon is like setting you up for a good year.
Oh, definitely, and I've done that the last few years, where yeah, you're doing a marathon or a 50K or something on day one.
Yeah.
Definitely sets you up in the right
And
mindset.
you still drinking a box of Waikatos the night before, or?
Oh, not anymore. Maybe one or two,
Yeah.
and not like
No.
it.
Oh, you're from Hamilton. That's
Yeah,
specifically why I picked it.
yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate you coming on today. Like I said at the start, it's genuinely an honor to sit down and chat to an athlete of your caliber. If people want to check you out and follow your journey, where would be the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, pretty active on Instagram. So I think it's Cochrane Simon,
Mm,
or my coaching business, athletic.peak, on Instagram as well.
mhm.
Yeah, find me a message. Always love to chat. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks heaps, man. Much appreciated.